Let's take a look at some of the typical components of a, turn off the crop region there, of a mechanical HVAC floor plan. Each of the items are identified with a tag. Those are found on the annotate tag by category. How you do those. And so you put a tag on your um, air terminal and on your mechanical equipment and your duct. Often these are shown in coarse that you see here, just line drawings. Sometimes they're in this medium. Rarely are they in fine. Okay. Usually they're coarse or medium. I'm going to suggest you put it in coarse. That's often what it is. Things that are identified in each one are air terminals, what the elevation is, and that should say face elevation. Let's see how to change one of those. If I double click on what's already there, go ahead and save my project. No, I don't want to save the tag. Okay, you'll see that this all comes up, and I had to change this. To change it, you click on it and double click on it and edit the label. These are the things that should be on there. Elevation for level, and this should, in this case, say face elevation. Space, elevation from level. And then you hit the break so that it actually goes down to the next line. In this case, this is a air terminal tag, type name, and flow. These are the three things: elevation from level, type name, and flow. And there should be 2 breaks. And then load that into your project. And overwrite. And now that will come up. Okay, so that's something you can do. You can also, if you want to leave off the leader line and just put it near it, some places will do that also. And that's perfectly reasonable and fine. You look at yours and see where it's going to fit the best. Okay. And so then I did the same thing with my ducting. I put a duct tag on. I had to load it, I think. And let's see what goes on to that one. Click, edit the label, lower and center line elevation. These are level, so you can just use either end. Center line elevation, so that's mid elevation, break, and in this case, we put in the size. Load that in, and it looks like that. Okay. And the other was my air handling unit. And what goes into there? Edit the label. It's the family name with a break and the model. Remember, I changed the model name to be the tons, 1 ton. Okay, so I put that in the model name. Put that into the project. And so that's how it ends up looking. So that's a typical HVAC floor plan. Okay, and that's going to go on a new HVAC 1 plan view sheet. I'll give you this title block that you can use. You'll put your name there, change it to plan view, change this to HVAC skills, and put your view on there. And then I put 3 schedules on here. Let's take a look at each of those schedules. The air terminal schedule. Oh, and you get those from Analyze Schedules. and then you pick the one you want. Here I picked air terminals. So what goes on there? Once you can get to it, you go to these fields, and I did count, type, and flow. Count, type, flow. That's typical because my type gave me all this information, the size of the face and the connection. I want to have the flow. Now look what I did on the flow. When I look at that one and I go to my formatting, I changed it a little bit. I went to the type. When I went to the flow, on the field format, I unchecked that, and I made sure that I was not using units, because then when I export it, I get just the number. But I have to know what my units are, so I put it up here in the heading. Put the units of CFM up in the heading, and I put just a number in here, so that when I export, I get just the number, and I can add and subtract and everything very easily. So that was that one. The next one was my mechanical equipment. And you can see I have count, family, and model. Count, family, and model. And again, you find those analyze, schedule and quantities, mechanical equipment is down here somewhere. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Mechanical equipment. You can do it all from there. And then the third one I put on was a duct schedule, count, diameter, and length. And on each of those, my filter was blank, and my sorting was itemize every instance. And also remember that on appearance, remove blank row before data. Now you'll have a fairly reasonable and fairly typical looking plan view. Move all those down if you want to put them wherever you want on the sheet. I also am in the habit, most architects don't, but I'm a mechanical engineer, so I do. I like my schedules all to have the same width if possible. So I just adjusted the width of each of these columns. So there's your plan view. Now we also have an elevation view. Very typically we have an elevation view. Okay, so let's take a look and see what goes on there. I'm going to go up to my elevation view. I use my East Mechanical. I hid the category of the level markers. And what I did is I put in spot elevations. Put spot elevations in here. Okay. So I put in a spot elevation for the face of the terminal, the center line of the upper HVAC duct, the top and bottom of my AHU. And then I just labeled them. Typical ducting, typical air terminal, return intake, and the AHU. It's also important to kind of know whether things are sitting right on the joists and if the rafters are going to miss. So I did some detail lines, and I dimensioned them. When I did this dimension, get that back in the right place, double click, I can uncheck actual value and say replace with text, and I wrote rafter width. Okay, and I don't care what the rafter width was. Well, I do, but nobody needs to know for this particular one. It's already there. I'm just noting that it's going to miss the rafters, and things are going to miss the joists. Okay, but it also means that somebody's going to have to put a blocking up in here. So we're not going to do the HVAC details this week. We're going to work on those next week. This will be enough for us, but we'll be putting in details that may take account of these later on. And I chose my East Mechanical as just a very simple one to work with. And of course, I put it on here to do that, right? It's add a view and then pick it, or you can just drag it into place. So those are the two views that we're looking for this week. If you feel like it, you can take one of your 3D views. See where my 3D views are. You can put something like this in your summary. If you want, well, you should have it in your summary. That will end up on a cover page or a 3D page. Those are all coming up next week. Okay, when you do an actual design of your own. Okay, so there we go. That is the process to create your plan and elevation views.